Drums thundered through the air, their steady rhythm pulling people toward the heart of the village. Laughter mixed with the sharp hum of voices as children darted between elders, their small feet tapping to the beat. Songs filled the space, a chorus of unity and joy rising higher with every moment. All eyes turned toward the sacred fire, its golden light reaching out, a beacon of hope. The flames leapt higher, their brilliance unmatched. People whispered of blessings and promises, their hands clasped in silent gratitude. A storyteller wove, a tale of the fire's eternal glow, a gift from the ancestors to protect the village. But even as the words painted images of peace, a shadow slipped unnoticed into the crowd. The figure moved quickly, the folds of a dark cloak blending with the night. It passed a cluster of elders, brushed against a basket of spilled yams, and paused just short of the fire's reach. A sharp voice broke the rhythm of the drums. "Who is that?" A cry followed, louder and more desperate. "Stop them!" Heads turned, hands pointing, but the figure acted with speed. From beneath the cloak came a pouch, flung in one swift motion into the heart of the flames. The pouch burst open, scattering its strange powder into the fire. The golden light faltered, the fire roared, unnatural and fierce. Bright orange gave way to a ghostly blue. Sparks flew wildly, forcing the crowd back. Screams filled the square, drowning the drums. People shielded their faces, their fear rising with the heat. Whispers surged like a tide. A curse. The ancestors are angry. The fire has turned against us. The firekeeper stepped forward, his face solemn. His voice rose above the panic, steady and commanding. "The sacred fire holds our destiny," he began. The crowd fell silent, clinging to his every word. "Without it, the crops will wither, the rains will stop, darkness will come." A murmur rippled through the villagers. Some dropped to their knees, pleading for forgiveness. Others stared at the blue flames, their eyes wide with disbelief. The firekeeper spoke again, his tone grave. "This is no ordinary fire. Its corruption is a warning. We must act before it consumes us." The silence didn't last. From the edge of the crowd came a voice, young but unwavering. What if the fire was never sacred? The bold question struck like thunder, silencing even the whispers. Heads turned, shocked faces searching for the source. The questioner stepped forward, shoulders straight and chin high. "What if it's just a story? What if we've been deceived?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elders muttered in anger, and hands gripped tightly to charms and beads. The village chief's voice cut through the tension, sharp and unyielding. "Silence! You will respect the traditions!" But the question lingered, refusing to fade. The crowd split, voices clashing. Some demanded answers, their eyes fixed on the firekeeper. "Tell us why the fire changed." Others turned their frustration toward the questioner. "Disrespect for the ancestors brought this curse." Accusations filled the square, and unity gave way to confusion. The firekeeper raised his hands, his voice heavy with authority. "We will investigate the cause," he promised. Yet his words lacked the conviction they once carried. The weight of his hesitation hung in the air, leaving doubt in its place. As the square emptied and the villagers returned to their homes, the questioner lingered near the fire. The blue flames danced in silence, their light casting eerie shadows on the ground. A friend approached, their voice low with caution. "Why do you keep looking?" "There's more to this fire than they're saying," came the quiet reply. Determination glimmered in their eyes, unwavering despite the fear that lingered in the village. The fire hissed softly as the night grew still, but the ember of curiosity had been lit, and it would not be extinguished. The edge of the village stretched wide, a place of dry grass and scattered trees. A figure moved quietly, stepping over roots and small stones. Eyes scanned the horizon, searching for something unseen by others. A bird's call broke the stillness, but it went unnoticed. There was always something out here, something waiting to be discovered. Adventure lived in the places where no one dared to look. Memories stirred like leaves in the wind. A voice, warm and wise, echoed from the past. The fire is not what it seems. Its secrets are older than this village. The words had been spoken so many times, often followed by laughter from those who dismissed them. But they had stuck deeper than the roots of a baobab tree. The voice continued in the mind. One day, you will understand. Look closer than others, and the truth will find you. The thought lingered, heavy yet comforting, as it always did. The crowd from long ago flashed in memory. Faces illuminated by firelight, leaning forward to catch every word of the storyteller. The elders spoke of the fire's glow, the gift of protection. Yet, between the words, there had always been pauses, unspoken thoughts. The elder had never finished those tales. The villagers didn't want to hear the endings. The memory faded, replaced by the present. A quiet sigh carried into the air. If the fire held secrets, why hadn't anyone asked questions? The thought stayed, even as footsteps turned back toward the village. A voice broke the quiet. We're not doing this again. Last time you almost got caught. The words came quickly, edged with worry. A sharp response followed. We didn't get caught. We won't this time either. The voice softened, still hesitant. What if we do? You'll get in trouble again. Silence answered for a moment. Then, with certainty, came the reply. Not if we're careful. There was a pause, a sigh, a step forward. Fine, but you owe me for this. In the market, traders called out, their voices rising above the chatter. Among them was one whose words were softer but sharper. You watch that fire too closely, came the observation. A turn of the head, a curious look. The trader smiled, faintly. Not all flames bring warmth. Some burn secrets. The words hung in the air. What does that mean? The trader didn't answer directly, only pointing to a woven basket of goods. The silence was its own riddle. The fire burned steadily in the distance. A figure lingered near the edge, gazing at the glow. Heavy footsteps approached. A sharp voice cut through the air. What do you think you're doing here? The figure froze but didn't answer. You have no idea what that fire is, do you? The tone grew heavier. Stay away from it. This is your only warning. The figure didn't move until the footsteps faded. Even then, the fire still held its gaze. Tension simmered in the village. Whispers floated from door to door. The crops are failing. The fire hasn't been the same. This is a bad sign. The words grew louder as more voices joined in. They gathered near the fire, their faces filled with worry. What's happening to the fire? Someone asked. The firekeeper stood tall, but his expression betrayed unease. It is nothing, he said, though the words felt hollow. Behind the huts, voices murmured in hushed tones. We can't keep it hidden forever. The words were low but clear. If they find out... The sentence broke off. It's too late for that. The fire has already changed. Hidden in the shadows, eyes widened. Questions formed but remained unspoken. The whispers continued, too soft now to catch. But the first words lingered, sharp as thorns. The small hut stood untouched, dust coating the ground like a blanket. Fingers traced across the old wooden door, hesitant before pushing it open. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of age. Shelves leaned under the weight of forgotten things. Hands moved quickly, searching. One object after another fell to the floor until something unusual appeared. A map, its edges frayed, lay hidden beneath layers of cloth. Strange symbols marked its surface, curling lines leading to a place deep in the unknown. Mangwe Forest? The words came softly, almost a whisper. A finger traced the path. The lines seemed alive, as though they dared to be followed. The map rested on a table. A voice spoke with quiet urgency. This is where we need to go. Another voice responded, sharp and nervous. That's the Mangwe Forest. You're serious? Look at the map. It has to mean something. It's dangerous. You know the stories. And the fire? What's happening to it isn't dangerous. The response silenced the argument. A hand reached out to pick up the map. If the fire's secret is out there, we need to know. The words were final, filled with determination. There was no turning back. The dense forest loomed ahead, its shadows weaving strange patterns. A hand tightened around a smooth stone, its surface worn with age. Feet hesitated at the edge, but the step forward came steady and firm. Behind, a voice broke the stillness. This place feels alive. Another voice, sharper and impatient, answered. Keep moving. The forest watches the fearful. The air thickened as the trees swallowed them whole. Each step carried them deeper into a world unlike their own. From the darkness, a faint hum stirred. A blade trembled, its edge alive with warning. Something's close, came the whisper. The bough rose in response, an arrow loosed into the shadows. The thud of wood meeting wood echoed, and a branch fell to the ground. The stone, held tightly, remained silent, its secrets hidden. A question lingered unspoken. What did it know? Voices carried on the wind, faint but unsettling. They rose and fell in a language unfamiliar, their meaning lost but their intent clear. Ignore them, came a sharp command. They're meant to confuse us. Another voice countered, quieter but firm. Or warn us. The earth seemed to shift beneath their feet. A step forward faltered, and a hand grabbed at the air, pulling back just in time. The pit yawned open, hidden beneath a thin layer of leaves. A hum grew louder, guiding them around another danger, a field of plants with sharp, glistening leaves. It's like the forest wants us gone. The observation came with a nervous glance. Something ancient called to them. A slab of stone, worn by time and hidden by moss, emerged from the shadows. Fingers brushed against its surface, uncovering words etched deep. Leave the flame untouched, or all shall burn. The words hung heavy, their warning clear. A voice, barely above a whisper, broke the silence. This was left for us to find. Eyes shifted nervously toward the trees. From the shadows, faint glimmers of light moved. They weren't fireflies. Whatever that is, it's not a friend. A hand tightened on a blade, its edge gleaming faintly. Yet, one figure stepped forward. Resolve clear, the light seemed to bend toward the movement, daring them to come closer. A figure emerged, shrouded in mystery. A mask concealed their face, but their presence spoke louder than words. Around them, animals moved in silence, their eyes locked on the intruders. When the figure spoke, the voice carried like a storm. You seek what should remain buried. Turn back now. The group froze, unsure of the next step. Words clashed in hushed tones. We should run. No, we fight. The figure raised a hand and the forest shifted. The world twisted, trees melting into strange shapes, the ground shifting beneath their feet. It's an illusion, came the shout. Follow my voice. The stone in hand glowed faintly, cutting through the confusion. The shapes faded, leaving only the masked figure and their creatures. A low growl broke the air as the animals charged. The group moved as one. A blade slashed through vines, clearing the path. An arrow struck the ground near the creatures, slowing their advance. The stone flashed bright, forcing the animals back, their growls fading into the distance. Breathless, they ran, the forest danger pressing closer with every step. The silence that followed was heavy. A voice, tired but determined, broke it. I've been hiding something. The confession came reluctantly. My family was once the guardians of the sacred fire. We were cast out when the chief took power. The truth spilled out, carried by quiet words. The fire had never been meant to last forever. It was stolen from its original source deep within the forest, a power taken without thought of its cost. Another voice rose, anger simmering beneath the surface. Why didn't you tell us this before? The question went unanswered. The weight of the secret was enough, but the determination that followed was clear. We're in this now. We can't turn back. The fire's truth waited ahead, and nothing would stop them from finding it. The dagger hummed louder, its vibration guiding them forward. Every step brought them closer to the unknown. The air grew thick, heavy with something unseen. Eyes darted to the shadows as unease settled over the group. A quiet voice broke through the tension. "This place feels cursed." The words lingered, unanswered. One figure stepped forward, shoulders firm, determination clear. There would be no turning back. The cave entrance appeared suddenly, hidden by vines and rock. The hum of the dagger stopped, as though it had reached its destination. Breath caught in throats as they crossed into the darkness. Inside, the air was alive with energy. At the center, a stone altar stood, and atop it burned a flame, brighter and more vivid than anything they had ever seen. "This is it." The voice carried both awe and hunger. The flame flickered, casting wild shadows against the walls, its light dancing with strange intent. The group stepped closer, but the heat pushed them back. The flame seemed to pulse as though aware of their presence. From the shadows, movement came. A figure emerged, their steps silent but heavy with purpose. The mask hid their face, but their presence was unmistakable. The voice that followed was deep, filled with warning. "You should not have come here." The mask fell, revealing a face they knew too well. Shock rippled through the group, followed by silence. "The fire is not what you think." The words carried regret. A hand gestured toward the flame. "It was Chief Abasi. He forced me to make it permanent. He wanted control over the village, and the fire gave him power." The voice faltered, but the truth spilled out. The powder. It was supposed to awaken its true power, but it did more than that. It revealed the truth. Questions came quickly. "Why didn't you stop him? Why did you let it happen?" The figure turned away, their shoulders heavy with guilt. "The fire feeds on fear and greed. It binds those who seek power. I couldn't stop him. I was part of it." Realization struck like a drumbeat. The fire wasn't sacred. It was a trap all along. The truth hung in the air, its weight undeniable. The flame flickered again, brighter, as though mocking them. A step forward broke the silence. Eyes burned with determination. "This fire belongs to my family." The declaration stunned the group. Hands clenched as words followed. "We were the guardians before Abasi took it from us. It was ours to protect." Another step brought her closer to the flame, her gaze unwavering. Protests rose behind her, but they were ignored. "Stay back! This is my right!" The air shifted as tension erupted. She reached for the flame, but another figure blocked her path. "You don't know what you're unleashing!" The warning came too late. The flame flared wildly, its heat filling the cave. Light burst across the walls, blinding them all. Cries of panic echoed as the power of the flame grew unstable. Chaos followed. Hands reached for weapons, slashing at nothing. The ground shifted beneath their feet as the cave seemed to come alive. The flame's glow consumed the space, threatening to overwhelm them all. Desperate voices called out, but the flame drowned them in its roar. Amid the chaos, a faint glow caught the eye. A stone, once silent, now pulsed with life. The memory of old words surfaced, quiet but clear. "The fire thrives on greed and fear. It can only be stopped by courage." The realization struck hard and fast. "We have to end this." A firm hand held the stone as it was placed on the altar. Protests rang out, filled with desperation, but they were ignored. The flame resisted, fighting back with its heat and light. Slowly, it began to dim. Its light flickered, growing weaker with each moment, until finally, it was gone. The cave shuddered, its walls trembling as cracks began to form. The group moved quickly, dodging falling rocks and stumbling toward the exit. Behind them, the altar stood silent, its power extinguished. At the edge of the forest, they paused, catching their breath. The silence was overwhelming, but something glimmered in the dark. A faint glow rested where the flame had been. The ember, small but alive, pulsed with a gentle warmth. A hand reached out, lifting it carefully. Its light was soft, almost comforting, as though it held a promise. The memory of the fire's power lingered, but so did hope. The ember's story was not over, but for now it would wait. The ember glowed softly, cradled carefully as the group moved through the forest. The weight of the journey hung in the air, unspoken but felt. A voice, unsure and nervous, broke the silence. "Will this be enough?" The reply came without hesitation, quiet but firm. "It has to be." The forest gave way to familiar ground. The village came into view, its once lively square now filled with anxious murmurs. Eyes turned toward the returning figures, faces filled with questions and fear. A voice rose above the crowd, sharp with panic. "Where is the sacred fire?" Another followed, trembling. "What have you done?" The ember was held high, its faint light drawing the crowd closer. A calm voice answered their cries. "This ember holds a new beginning." The reassurance spread slowly, steadying the unease. Doubt lingered but did not take root. The ember was placed gently into the village's fire pit. Quiet words, once spoken by an elder long gone, were whispered again. The ember flickered, then grew, a small flame rising. Its warmth reached out, soft and comforting. The crowd watched, in silence as the sky above darkened. Rain began to fall, gentle at first, then steady. Hope returned with each drop. The flamekeeper stood before the villagers, his head bowed. His voice broke the stillness, heavy with regret. "I allowed greed and fear to blind me. I betrayed your trust." The crowd murmured, their emotions mixed. Some spoke in anger, others in forgiveness. The flamekeeper raised his hands, stepping aside. "I will spend the rest of my days making amends." Attention turned to the village leader, whose face betrayed unease. Questions came quickly, sharp and relentless. "Why did you let this happen? What were you protecting?" The leader struggled for words. "I thought I was protecting us," he said, his tone defensive. The crowd would not relent. Change was demanded, and a council was formed. Leadership was no longer a single voice, but many. From the edge of the crowd, a quiet voice spoke. "I have much to learn." The group turned to see one of their own, eyes filled with newfound purpose. "I cannot stay here. My path lies elsewhere." A faint smile was shared before they departed, leaving behind a mix of sadness and hope. The villagers gathered around the flame, its gentle light drawing them close. Gratitude filled the air, directed toward one who had brought them back from the brink of darkness. Voices called out, celebrating their hero. The response came humbly. "It wasn't just me, I had help." Thanks were offered to those who had stood alongside, and a moment of silence honored the wisdom of the past. The younger ones sat close, their eyes wide with wonder as the story of the sacred fire was retold. The words were simple, but their meaning was deep. The fire was never about power. It was about unity and hope. The children listened, their hearts stirred by the tale. They carried it forward, sharing it with one another, ensuring it would not be forgotten. The flame burned steadily, its warmth spreading through the village. Crops began to grow again, and life returned to the land. Each evening, the villagers gathered, not in fear, but in gratitude. They sang, told stories, and laughed, their voices rising with the crackling flame. One figure stood apart, looking to the horizon. The flame reflected in their eyes, but their gaze reached beyond it. The journey was far from over. Another story waited, just beyond the edge of the village. The villagers gathered around the gentle flame, its warm light dancing softly in the cool evening air. The elder stood before them, his voice rising above the crackling fire. "Let me tell you a story of greed, courage, and truth," he began, his tone drawing every ear closer. He spoke of how the sacred fire had once been a symbol of unity, but how fear and selfishness had twisted its purpose. "It was greed that almost destroyed us," he warned, his eyes resting on the younger ones seated closest to the flame. "It blinds the heart, binds the soul, and leaves destruction in its wake." The children listened intently, their small hands clutching their knees, their gazes fixed on the elder's face. The tale shifted to bravery, and the elder's voice swelled with pride. "But even in the darkest times, courage can light the way. Truth can break even the strongest illusions." He recounted the moments of courage that had led to the fire's transformation, pausing to let the weight of those actions settle among the villagers. Heads nodded, murmurs of agreement spreading through the crowd. Hope flickered as brightly as the flame. The elder's tale inspired stories of its own. Around the fire, voices began to rise, weaving new songs and proverbs. Kyone's name was spoken with admiration, carried like the wind from one mouth to the next. "She showed us that traditions must be questioned to find the truth," a mother whispered to her child, who smiled and repeated the words as if learning a lesson for the first time. The younger villagers began to dream aloud. "What if there are other secrets beyond our village?" one asked. Another answered, their voice filled with wonder. "We should explore. We should learn." The courage of Kyone's journey ignited something in their hearts, a desire to see beyond the familiar. They spoke of lessons, not just from the fire, but from the bravery it had taken to face its secrets. "The fire taught us lessons," a teenager said, "but so did the courage to face it." The elder's voice returned, strong and solemn. He declared that the new flame would be different. "This fire will guide us," he said, his tone carrying both authority and warmth, "but it will never rule us again." The villagers listened, nodding, the message carving itself into their collective memory. Wisdom would lead them now, not fear. As the crowd began to disperse, Kyone stood near the fire pit, her thoughts quiet. The ember she had saved rested lightly in her hand, its faint glow catching her eye. She stared at it, feeling its warmth, and whispered softly, "It's not done with us." The elder, still nearby, caught her gaze and smiled. His expression held a knowing look as if he understood something she did not yet see. "Every ember holds a story waiting to be told," he said, his words cryptic but filled with promise. Kyone glanced at the glowing ember, her thoughts stirring with questions, possibilities. The ember was placed gently on the altar, its faint light a symbol of what had been lost and what had been found. The villagers saw it as a reminder of the fire's lessons, its mysteries still waiting to unfold. As the flame burned steadily in the background, Kyone turned and walked toward the horizon, her steps light but purposeful. Behind her, the fire glowed brightly, a symbol of hope, unity, and wisdom. Ahead of her, the unknown stretched out, vast and open. She walked with confidence, knowing her story was only the beginning of many more to come.